Pseudoregalia, an indie retro-inspired 3D platformer, Metroidvania, is a game that I never thought I would enjoy and invest so much time into it. The game was developed by 6 people, who go by the name of Ritzler, Hi my name is Matt, Technicolor Yawn, Potato Tato, Plus W Plus, and Steel Crisp. They developed the first version of Pseudoregalia in less than 3 weeks for the Metroidvania Month 19 Jam that was hosted on itch.io. The game won first place in the competition, achieving first place in almost all of the Game Jam criterias. 3 months later, an improved version of the game was released on Steam and itch.io, which brought new areas, new enemies, a story related to the gameplay, a visual overhaul and bug fixes. If this game already piqued your interest, I suggest that you stop watching the video so you can experience firsthand this amazing game. Down in the video description, I will leave the links to the Steam page and itch.io game, where you can purchase the game for yourself. I think that after this short introduction, we can finally start the video analysis for this game. After creating and loading a save file, you will be introduced to the first and only cutscene of the game. The first thing we can notice is that the character that we are playing as has a similar figure to the silhouette we saw in the main menu screen, so we can assume that they are probably the same character. In this very room, we can interact with two things: a small goat-like character, which will say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to fall out of my cage. I hope the princess won't be upset with me." If we interact with the mirror from which our character materialized, she will say, "That barely worked. I hope I'm not too late." From this dialogue and the name of the area, we can gather that we are in a sort of prison area, which is filled with bird cages that are used to imprison these goat-like creatures that have a similar anatomy to our protagonist. We can even assume that our goat-like friend has some sort of teleportation power, seeing that she went from an empty space to this new dimension, thanks to the mirror in the room. Moving forward into the dungeon, we will encounter a sort of shrine graveyard of sorts. In the middle of it, we will collect the item called Dreambreaker. The description of this item states: attack freely while moving to vanquish foes. Hitting enemies will build up magical power. We can see that the model of this item is a sort of mix between a sword and a cross. With it, we can break cracked walls, attack hostile entities, and fill up our energy cache, which can be used to heal ourselves. An interesting thing to note is probably the name of the item. This item is called Dreambreaker, which signifies that this is a tool to destroy dreams, which could be interpreted in two ways. It could be seen as an item that can be used to wake up a person from their dream, or as an item that can destroy any recollection of a dream that the person was having. Unfortunately for now, we cannot say anything with certainty. After breaking the cracked walls that were previously inaccessible to us, we reach the first checkpoint of the game, which is a crystal. By hitting it, we can save our progress. The next room of the dilapidated dungeons is a parkour obstacle, which tests our basic movement mechanical skills. In this very room, we can encounter another of those small anthropomorphic goats, which, when interacted with, will tell us, "What's dead should stay dead. It's dead. It should stay dead. What's dead should stay dead. What's dead is dead. What's dead is dead. Should stay dead. But he's back." A bit of a horrifying and cryptic message, We can only assume that someone or something that was previously deceased got resurrected. Seeing that we are in a sort of prison, we can assume that this someone was a prisoner or a guard of this facility. By completing the obstacle course, we reach another area with a save point and a new upgrade named Slide. The description states: gain a boost of speed and slide under tight gaps and some attacks, but by itself an incomplete technique. A pretty self-explanatory ability in my opinion. A thing that I love about this game is that it never holds your hand. Every time you get a new ability, the game states what it does and gives you an obstacle course that is designed to be completed by only using the new ability you unlocked, pretty much to check if you understood its mechanic. Moving forward, we will reach a room containing two new items: a lever, with which we can lower the gates we jumped over a few seconds ago, and a door locked by a giant white lock. This can only mean one thing: we need to find a key to open the door. In this room, we can find another one of those small goats. When we interact with him, he will tell us: "You're this guy's favorite team, but you'll fool most of them. Not like it matters. You're stuck here like the rest of us now. No getting past strong guys." The first comment from the little goat is quite strange and peculiar. This means that our character has the ability to shape-shift her own image. An interesting thing to note is that our character is quite similar to these small goats we encountered in this brief period of time. This can mean one thing: our character is pretty much trying to blend in with the population that lives in this dimension. For what purpose, you may ask? Maybe to not attract too much attention from other folks of this world, or it could be a situation of wolf in sheep's clothing, where our protagonist is trying to bring unbalance and chaos in this world. Another thing to take note is the name Strong Eyes. Our small friend told us that he is the main obstacle of the dilapidated dungeons, and we have to beat him if we want to get out of this prison. After switching the lever, we notice that there is a small hole. If we take it, we'll be led to a big room comprised of 4 pillars. On the northern part of this room, we can see 2 things: some small white keys that can probably be used to open the door, and a feminine silhouette that is idly waving back and forth. If you try to approach them, this will happen. We can probably assume that this creature is Strong Eyes. By the looks of it, they're missing an arm and are bandaged up like a mummy. We can probably assume that they were the ones that got resurrected, seeing that their body is in such a state. Strong Eyes has 3 forms of attack: a howl, which deals no damage but makes you lose the Dream Breaker and pushes you quite far away; a normal swing attack that can be dodged by sliding or by being far away from it. If hit by it, we will lose our sword. Last but not least, if the player is too distant from Strong Eyes, they will start throwing rocks at us. Another thing to appreciate is the soundtrack that follows this boss fight. The name of the soundtrack is The Fiercely Loyal, which is one of the best songs from this OST. The song title is a reflection of Strong Eyes' personality. We can see them as a sort of knight who is trying to do anything in their power to protect the princess. After defeating Strong Eyes, we can collect the small keys and open the door that was previously locked. In this new room, we find a stone tablet with the inscription: "A tower holding the essence of the princess, never to be seen again. But with the 3 powers of the sun, one can find their own path." This means that the figure we saw in the boss fight room was probably the princess of this realm. Something that probably caught your attention is the 3 powers of the sun paragraph. Once again, this is an important thing to keep in mind, because it will be discussed later in the video. Going a little bit further, we find some stairs that lead to a bright room. After going up the stairs, we reach a new section of the world, called Castle Sansa. Going a little bit further, we reach a small room, with a checkpoint and one of those small goat butlers. He will tell us: "These crystals are pretty nice, right? They make me feel safe. I think I'm gonna lick it. I bet it's full of minerals." This small conversation has nothing to do with the plot of the story, but it's a small fun fact that remarks about goats licking rocks to gain nutrients, such as calcium, iron, and so on. If we take the door in front of us, we will have complete access to explore all of the areas of the game, to some extent for now. However, before trying to do that, we should take the right door room instead. This room contains a stone with the inscription: to keep the memories from fading. Above it, we'll find a new skill for our character called Memento, with a description. Rooms will be revealed to you as you enter them, allowing you to more easily chart a course through an area. With it, we gain access to a map of the game, which updates every time we reach a new room. This room and upgrade were added with the most recent update of the game, because some people were complaining that they were easily getting lost trying to traverse the various areas of the game. Really thoughtful act from the developer, but the skill could have been implemented just a little bit better. The only thing that, in my opinion, is missing is a sort of sign arrows that points to the right door, or the goat saying that we can find something useful at the door on the right, so the player would be more inclined to go first there than go straight. I'm saying this because in my first playthrough, I completely skipped the right room and went forward. Because of it, I did get sometimes lost in the various areas, but it didn't bother me that much, since that exploration is part of Pseudoregalia. Thankfully, I was even able to memorize the whole map of the game. By taking the other door, we reach a sort of hub area from where you can reach most of the other regions of the game. In the middle of it, we can find another skill, called Indignation. The description of it reads as follows. Higher power gives you increased combat capabilities. If your magic meter reaches level 2, then your range of attack is increased. If you reach level 3, you will deal more damage. So, whenever you're in combat, you need to decide between two options. Heal yourself and lose a level of Indignation, or keep your level high, so you can keep the bonuses of the skill, but risk losing the fight because you didn't want to heal yourself. The whole dimension of Pseudoregalia is divided in 8 areas, called Dilapidated Dungeon, Castle Sansa, Sansa Keep, Twilight Theater, Listless Library, Empty Ballet, Underbelly, and Tower Remains. For now, only Dilapidated Dungeon, Castle Sansa, Sansa Keep can be accessed by us at this stage of the game. The first one we'll explore is Sansa Keep. The aesthetics of this place reminds me of a sort of medieval palace where the king and queen would reside. Even the soundtrack, A Forgotten Fortress, has some sort of royal tune to it. In this area of the game, we can find 2 new skills. The first one is Sunsetter, which description reads: press the LTQ key while in the air to plunge downwards, which can then chain into a high jump. Thanks to this new ability, we can now reach higher places, which we couldn't before with our normal jump. Unfortunately, the other ability in this area is for now inaccessible to us, so we'll have to backtrack later on. Before moving to Listless Library, I would like to show you an intriguing area of Sansa Keep, which you can see now on your screen. Here we can find another one of those small goats, which texture was replaced by that of the floor. Interacting with him, he will gargle up this nonsense. C-Y-U-I-Y-C-E. In this room, we can see that the goat isn't the only thing that got corrupted, but even some furniture lost their texture and it isn't anymore abiding to the laws of physics. Something is corrupting this place, and it looks like this is only the beginning of the corruption of the world. I think that our protagonist teleported to this dimension to clean up the mess that was generated in this world, but unfortunately, not everything will be salvageable from the looks of it. As the name suggests, Listless Library is a library full of bookshelves containing different types of literature. It's quite a peaceful area, seeing that there are no monsters that can attack you, and the soundtrack, Pages of Solemnity, invoke an air of peacefulness and tranquility to it. In this giant library, Sybil can read many different books, such as a cooking book, which makes our character insane, a book of classic plays, a book about reading, which surprisingly is hard to read, a book about a jester sentenced to death by his king and as a final trick they steal the sun, a book about aquatic life, which our character is intrigued by it, a book about a beautiful princess who waits in the tower to be saved by a charming prince, which strangely enough the ending is torn out, a book about dealing with loss, which makes our character sane, a book about musical theory, which our character remarks the writing as ramblings of a madman, a story about a girl who gets whisked away to a fantastical world without strife. And lastly, a book about a woman with a magic sword who seeks revenge above everything. In one of the sections of the library, you can find a red crystal that when hit will trigger a sort of race throughout of this room. If you collect the 8 blue bubbles before the red timer, you'll be awarded with the outfit Sleepy Time. I think now is a good time to talk about the various items you can find around Pseudoregalia. To start off, in each area of the game, you'll be able to find one red crystal, identical to the one you have just seen now. They offer a sort of race against time, where the player must use all of the abilities they unlocked in the best way possible and at the same time chart the best path to reach each bubble. If you complete the race before the red timer, you are rewarded with a new outfit for the protagonist, which only changes the appearance of the protagonist and nothing else. Some notable examples are Soldier, Professional, and my most favorite of the bunch, Sleepy Time. For the remaining ones, I will let you, the viewer, discover them for yourself. Something very useful that can be found in some areas are the so-called aspects. They can be seen as a sort of passive ability that rewards the player for exploring every nook and cranny of each area. Some examples are Clear Mind, which makes you hold more magical power, Pilgrimage, with which you can move slowly while healing, and Aerial Finesse, which gives you the opportunity to regain balance when you get hit by a monster. The last two things that you can find are small keys that can be used to access areas that were previously locked, and life up pieces that can give you a permanent boost of HP whenever you collect 3 of them. Going back to Listless Library, in the same room with the red crystal or sides, you can find a small crack on the wall that our character can slide through it. Here we will find the skill called Sun Greaves, with a description. After a short delay, do an air kick. Hitting walls and objects with it will cause you to jump away. Can be done up to 3 times until reset. An ability that seems useless at the beginning but opens up many options for movement. It can be used to change direction of movement at any moment, to gain that small vertical boost to reach a ledge, or to gain a small boost of forward movement. Another thing that I like about the Sun Greaves is the small tutorial area that comes with them. I really love how a ray of sun shows you in which position you should do the air kick. Truly an impressive way of implementing a tutorial level without using dialogue or text. The next area on our list is Empty Valley, one of the smallest areas of the games, which contains a banger of a track called Outside the Castle Walls. In my opinion, this is the song that represents best the concept of Pseudoregalia, because it always gives me a sense of freedom and determination of exploration that no other track from the OST can give me. In one of the buildings of the area, we can find the ability Solar Wind, which description reads, completes the technique of the slide, cross long distances with an airy long jump. As the description says, it's a great tool to gain a lot of horizontal momentum that you can keep it longer if you bunny hop, which is a movement tech that you can find in CS2 and in Titanfall 2. From Empty Valley, we can reach one of the most important areas of the game, called Tower Remains. The name of the soundtrack that you are currently listening is Tower Remains. This soundtrack gives a sort of mysticism feel to the area, almost like there is a higher being of sort that is waiting for your arrival. At the main entrance of the gate, we will find a stone tablet that has the same description of the one at the end of Dilapidated Dungeon. The 3 powers of the sun are the 3 skills we found in the previously discussed areas, because they contain a form of the word sun. Thanks to these powers, we can scale a part of the tower and gain access of its interior. In the interior, we can find a new ability called Cling Gem that gives us the following description. Hold tight to walls while you propel yourself a short distance. Can be jumped out of and can go around curved walls and corners. Pretty much a skill which grants you the ability to wall run. A cool detail you probably already noticed is that our character gained a sleeve with a gem on top of it. Pretty nifty, not gonna lie. With these new skills at hand, we can reach now the top of the tower, where we will find a massive red door with 5 golden locks and 5 stone plaques. In no particular order, we have Appointed by the Guarded Hand in the Bailey, deep in the underbelly, surrounded by holes. Atop the distant tower, beckoning the lost livestock. On center stage, for all to see in the theater, sitting upon a lonely throne, forgotten in the keep. What could these items be, you may ask? Well, seeing that the door has 5 locks, which is the exact number of blocks, that could only mean one thing. We need 5 special keys to open the door. What could be behind the door though? It could be the essence of the princess trapped behind those doors. Seeing that we haven't met her yet, but there is only one way to find out. Before we go to the underbelly area, we'll do a short detour to Sansa Keep, because thanks to our new abilities, we can reach a new area of the keep, which will give us the skill called Strike Break, which reads: a more powerful attack that locks you in place, can be used to destroy heavy barriers. As the description suggests, we can now break down the green barriers that we will find around the castle, although it can even be used as a powerful attack against the various enemies we encounter, if we learn their attack pattern beforehand, so we aren't left exposed when charging the attack. The next area we'll visit is the underbelly. As you can see, this new area is the biggest contrast between the other locations we visited a few minutes ago. This new location is much darker, hostile, grim and corrupted compared to the previous location. This tone is amplified tenfold by the track that has the same name of the area. Not a song that I would personally listen to, but a great song for such a dangerous environment. This location is huge, but with some good movement and planning out, we can reach a new power called Ascended Light. Attack objects and enemies to bounce off of them. With it, we can now bounce off the dark energy spheres and the enemies that are moving on the walls and ceiling. A great ability with which you can keep and gain a bit of vertical momentum when there is an opportunity for it. The last area of the game is Twilight Theater, which is the most fleshed out zone in my opinion. It has some of the best fighting and parkour sections in the game, and the small outside area has the most breathtaking scenery from all of the areas. The tune of this area, called Delirious Acting, really makes you feel like you're in a sort of theater where the main performance is you playing the stages of this location. A great tune that perhaps you, the viewer, can add it to your repertoire of music. In this area we'll find the last skill, called Soul Cutter, which reads: enhances your charge attack with a long distance projectile. If you have power available, it will consume a level to enhance the damage. With it we gain the first and only projectile based ability, a necessity to complete some puzzles of this area, but underwhelming in combat, seeing that I have never used it for such purposes. Having collected all of the abilities for our character, we can now start collecting all of the main keys for the door at the tower. The first one is located in the empty valley area, which is protected by one of the armed enemies and a living knight statue. The second key can be found in a room of the underbelly that is filled with pillars and black energy balls. This one, in my opinion, is the hardest one to find, seeing that the description on the tower doesn't help you much. If you have any difficulties in finding the key, then try to find a knight statue that is on the floor. If you find it, then that means you're pretty close to it. The third key is found on the top floor of the tower. They will be waiting for you at the best viewpoint of the bridge. The fourth key can be found in Twilight Theater, at the center of the stage. To get to them, you will need to complete some parkour courses and fight some enemies, so you will be able to get to the levers that control the cage of the keys. The last keys can be found close to the throne room of this castle. To gain access to this room, you will need to go through the biggest parkour section of the game, where at the end of it, there will be a big switch, which will open the door to the throne room. After this scavenger hunt with the keys, we can finally open the big red gates at the top of the tower. Going through the new entrance, we gain access to a new area that has this name. With some intuition, we can come to the conclusion that the name of this area is probably distorted memory. The area design looks immensely eerie, and such feeling of uneasiness is amplified a lot by the complete silence of this location. If you go to the center of the room, we will plunge into the pitch darkness of the floor, until Unfortunately, the princess doesn't want anything to do with us, so we need to beat some sense into her, so we can wake her up. The princess has the following attacking moves: a 2-speed face slash attack with the head axe attached to her blade. She can summon a great amount of medium bouncy balls that can be redirected with the normal attack move. She can generate a massive energy ball that follows slowly the player around and deals a lot of damage if touched. A spinning attack with her axe head that can stun you and make you lose the Dream Breaker. She can generate around herself a lot of small dark energy balls, which can be once again reflected with your attack. And lastly, a homing white energy ball that can be sent back to the center with a well-placed hit on it. To finish this off, the princess has the ability to teleport around the arena, making it even harder for the player to predict where she will be for the next attack. The track that accompanies this fight is called Paramnesiac. This track always gives me a sort of flight or fight sensation, where unfortunately the only option is to fight. The high tempo parts of the track feels like the heart of a person pounding faster and faster, almost like someone is waking up from a deep slumber. The word paramnesiac is a derivative of paramnesia, which stands for a memory-based illusion or confabulation, or an inability to distinguish between real and fantasy memories. This definition is going to be important after a few minutes, so do keep this in mind. Given the dreamy aesthetic of the game, we can assume that the whole game of Pseudoregalia takes place in a dream dimension, which was created by the princess. We will notice that the world is in a sort of decay, seeing that most of its inhabitants were closed into the dungeons of the castle, and the various glitchy corruptions that could be seen in some areas of the game, like the one in Sansa Keep. But why is happening all of this, and who is the princess of this dimension? The princess can be seen as the figurative representation of the girl, woman, who is having the nightmarish dream. But what could be the cause for a person to have such a reclusive and nightmarish dream? It isn't stated anywhere in the game, but in my opinion, the princess lost someone special in her life. This can be assumed in two particular details in the game, which are in the ending dialogue, where the princess at the beginning says, "Not really the kind of person you wanna hang out with, right?" And I barely remember what she was really like at this point. In Lisa's library, we can even find a book which talks about dealing with loss, but from the looks of it, it didn't help her that much. As a sort of coping mechanism, the woman decided to become a shut-in, where she didn't have to face the reality of the situation. Because of this, she started to live in the dreams her brain fabricated. That's why the track of the princess is titled Paramnesiac. She truly believed to live in a fulfilling life in this way. Another thing to note in Lisa's library is the book about Rapunzel, a story of a girl locked in the tower until she is saved by the love of her life. The book in the library has its ending page torn out, probably because the princess was hopeful that eventually someone would rescue her from her metaphorical tower, but at the end no one came. Out of frustration or despair, she decided to tear out the last page of the book, because she probably thought that she will never be able to reach her happy ending. Unfortunately, dreams aren't meant to last, because if they do, then they slowly start to corrupt and eat away your humanity and sanity. Fortunately for her, Sybil, the main character we play, shows up in her dreams. We now know that her goal is to rescue the princess from her own undoing. But who is she? I can see her as being two things. The first possibility is that she is a sort of guardian angel that comes to the rescue whenever a person is in need of help. The other option, that I like much more, is that Sybil is the incarnation of the superego of the girl. I can see this being true because of three facts. Firstly, the princess probably cut all contact with everyone she knew, and the only thing that can now save her is her own superego. Secondly, Sybil gets access to the Pseudoregalia dimension through the use of a mirror, which is an item that reflects your own image back to you. I think that the princess saw herself in the reflection, beating the darkness consuming her, but alas, chose not to believe in her own mental fortitude. That's why I find the mirror in dilapidated dungeons, so it can be as far away as possible from the princess. Lastly, Sybil took a disguise that is most compatible to the dimension created by the princess, so she could fool her into thinking that someone is helping her out. After completing the game, I could say that Sybil is a more tragic character compared to the princess. She is pretty much a spirit that is confined between the dream and limbo dimension, the one that you can see in the startup menu. Someone that could never experience the wonders of aquatic life, or live her own life like the small little Thimble, or the girl with a magic sword seeking for vengeance. But I think that she made peace with this outcome, because she knows that her purpose is to be a guiding light to the person she inhabits. I think that Pseudoregalia is one of those short games that you will play once and think about them for the rest of your life. It has great aesthetics that emulate the feeling of playing a game of the N64 generation, like Ocarina of Time or Super Mario 64. The movement of the game gives you such freedom that sometimes you can even sequence break the game with enough practice and trial. I can attest to that because I did this during my first playthrough of the game. The animation of Sybil and of the other characters are extremely fluid and expressive. Some good examples are the bunny hop jump of Sybil and her amazing balance standing on a pole, which perfectly reflects the steadiness of mountain goats on a cliff. The only thing that is missing in this game is probably more boss fights in the different areas, since that there were only 2 of them in the whole game. A cool idea would be to have a boss fight for each of the major keys, but seeing that the game was developed by 6 people, I can understand why there wasn't much focus in the combat department. Well, this is your host, Janmark118, and I'm signing off.